Hey folks, welcome back to another episode here. Today I'm going to be talking about what to look for when you go for help or look for help from a professional, and particularly in the areas of whether you're looking for a coach, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a therapist, a relationship counselor, all of the above there, because there's a very important thing here to acknowledge and to really pay attention to. Not all of these professionals are equal. I'm sure you've experienced that if you've actually talked to some individuals yourself. If you haven't and you're thinking about it, then you definitely want to listen to this episode. It's also important for you, if you're not thinking about it for yourself, but there's someone in your family or perhaps someone on your team that requires help from a professional, because what we are seeing now is a significant increase, and I'm going to say even spike, in people's mental health challenges. And what does that mean? That means that people are feeling more down and out. People are feeling challenged with their own emotions, their own thoughts, and trying to keep things together. Now, again, I like to be an optimist here, but I'm also a realist. And what we are seeing and what we are experiencing in the workforce is that a lot of people are feeling really challenged. Personally, last week has been a big challenge for me because I had to attend my friend's funeral, and he went way too soon. He was only 49 years old, and we actually thought he was going to make it. He got into a really bad car accident, was starting to recover, and it was like he was almost there. This guy was a fighter. He got into this massive car accident and broke all his ribs, broke his jaw, broke his vertebrae, shattered his arm, and was induced a coma for a few weeks, got out, started to walk, and then all of a sudden he passed. And that was the biggest challenge for me personally in a very, very long time. And the reason why I bring this up, because one of his challenges, one of the things that led him to where he got to, was mental health. And we had started talking about his challenges a little bit too late. Things had already developed before him and I started to work together. And I had no clue some of the challenges that he was going through in life. And so this isn't just for men. This is also for women as well, because many women face these challenges. And it's important for you as a leader to be aware of this, because if you're not facing these challenges yourself, let's just say your life is all dandy and it's great, which I hope it is, but there might be other people in your life who are struggling, that need the help. And this is particularly important because if they decide to, which I think every person should get help from some professional, because there's so much that all of us can learn when it comes to our own self-awareness, our own personal development in this area of psychology, thinking, thoughts, feelings, relationships. It is, how do I say it? Once you open up the box, there is so much to learn and so much opportunity to grow as an individual, not just to overcome challenges, but also to grow and expand, because it can help you be that much more powerful. But on the flip side, I've also experienced where the challenges come into play when you go to these professionals, because they're not all equal. And that's the main point here. You want to pick the individuals who are the best of their class or the best in their space. Why is that? Because they are literally helping you shape and mold your mind. It's like if you took your vehicle to a shop and you needed your brakes replaced. Let's just say the brakes are super simple, but you needed the brakes, the fuel line, and a whole bunch of these different things replaced. The most, I'm going to say, important and critical, vital aspects of your vehicle. You don't want to take it to a shady auto shop, even on the average level, because people are messing with your brakes, they're messing with your fuel lines. That's what's happening when you are working with individuals who are professionals in their space, such as psychologists or relationship coaches or whatever it may be. They are, and they have a significant impact on your mind, and they have a significant impact on your relationships and your well-being. So you want to choose the best of the best. I am not a big fan of selecting average in this area, because if you select average, you're going to get poor results. You want to select the best. Now, some people might say, well, Pradeep, these people are expensive. I agree with you to a certain degree. But again, in this particular instance, you get what you pay for. So if you're just looking for someone to talk to vent to just express yourself, then it's okay to actually find the average person, because you're just paying someone to listen. But if you are looking for advice, if you're looking for someone to help you reshift and change your mindset and emotional capacity, and maybe even help you improve your relationship or relationships with people, then you want to go for the best, because anything less can actually screw things up. So I don't want to scare you. That's not the whole point here. But you got to pay attention to this. So what are the things that you need to look for? One of the main things to look for, if not the most important thing, is what is their experience? Now, not taking away from new people. Let's just say a new therapist that comes into the field. I'm not taking anything away from them because they have to have practical hours. But you want to have someone who has a significant amount of experience, because experience teaches people things that the academic world doesn't teach them. And there's slight nuances through experience that they can help you and educate you on that will accelerate your results a lot faster. So experience is very important. Credentials are also important. And credentials really come into play here, mainly to ensure that they're actually keeping up to date with the latest science, the latest research. Yes, psychology, if that's what we're taking a look at, or even if you're taking a look at some other areas of getting coached, things change. Science actually changes because we have new technology. For example, when the latest upgrade in a telescope happened that was observing far distant areas of the universe, they've discovered some pretty interesting things that they didn't know about before. And it's changed people's perspectives. So even within science, things change. Psychology, things change quite often. So you want a professional who is keeping their credentials up to date, keeping their knowledge up to date, a person who is learning the latest and greatest. I've talked to people in this space because I have a vast network of people in this area of performance psychology, neuroscience. And some of these individuals have just been completely outdated. They haven't kept themselves up to date. And so when I'm having conversations about certain things, they are still talking about the old models, the old way of doing things, the old theories that have been completely debunked. So make sure that those individuals are keeping their credentials up to date and going to workshops, not only to keep their credentials up to date, but because they have an intense desire to learn and continue to grow and upgrade their skills. That's when you know that you have a good person on your side. And yes, it's completely okay to interview them, because a lot of these individuals, I'm going to say it as it is. A lot of them have a chip on their shoulder because they believe that they are in a superior position of some sort, whether a coach or mentor, psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever it may be. A lot of the times, many of these people do have a big ego, and many of these people get offended if you ask them about their credentials and their background and experience, but they shouldn't. If they get offended, then you know that you might not have the right person, because they should understand you as a human being, that you are looking out for your best interests and ensuring that they are qualified. So any great professional will be happy to talk to you about their credentials, their background, their experience, and why they may be a good fit for you. The other part to take a look at is, have they dealt with similar situations? Perhaps not the exact same situation, but similar situations. Because you don't want to go to a relationship therapist and, you've been married for 50 years, but they never worked with a couple who's been married for 50 years. They've only worked with couples who've been married for 10 years. That's a different dynamic. So you want to make sure that they've dealt with similar situations at least. It doesn't have to be the exact same. Now, another aspect to pay attention to is doing an actual reference check. This is kind of tricky because in the area of, let's just say, licensed practitioners, they are bound by certain rules and regulations and licensing bodies, and they can't divulge any information about their patients or their existing clients or whatever that looks like. In our field, for example, where we do high performance work with individuals, specifically individuals, a lot of them don't want us to share who they are. A lot of us don't want to talk about their organization, so we sign confidentiality clauses. So it might be tough for you to go to a professional and say, hey, can I have some references? But if in some way they can share references, then I'd highly encourage you to touch base with them as well. Something else to consider is it's kind of like buying a vehicle as well. Or I'm going to say going for a test drive. You want to make sure that you don't dive in fully. You want to dip your toes in the water a little bit, maybe then dip your feet and then your leg and then jump in when you feel comfortable with this individual. Because again, it's not easy to determine if this professional is really good, even within the first few sessions. It's really not, because once you get deep into it, you're going to realize what their level of expertise are. Because typically when you get into these types of environments, there's what we call quick wins and quick observations. And so they might bring things to light that are fairly obvious for them, maybe not so obvious for you. And it seems like, wow, this person knows what they're talking about. They're really good at what they do. And then you get into it maybe 4 or 5, however many sessions later, and you realize, wow, this person is not, they don't have the depth of experience and expertise that you're looking for. So that's something else to pay attention to, is just to do a quick test drive with this individual and see not only their level of experience and knowledge, but also your working relationship, because there's some people that you may get along with more than others. I've experienced this myself with the professionals in my space. There's some people I will just not refer to because I don't think their personality would match my clients or people in my network. So I wouldn't send it certain individuals to them. Now there's other individuals, let's just say someone that has a really direct and a strong approach. Yeah, some of the people in my network need that. So I will direct them to that individual. So your working relationship with these professionals is also very critical as well. Now, the last thing I want to say here is that you want to come into these sessions with some knowledge, with some background research about what you are dealing with. So if it's a relationship challenge, have some background, do some digging, do some self-awareness before you go into these sessions, rather than going in there completely blind, because you want to be able to have an educated conversation. And in some respects, you even want to be able to challenge the individual, because when you can challenge them to a certain degree, then they are able to bring out the best in themselves. And speaking as a professional, so I'm not a psychologist, but I do a lot of performance work with the clients that we have in the area of performance psychology. And I can tell you that when someone comes in with some education, it's great. I love it, because that way I can have more in-depth conversations with that individual. They're not completely, I don't want to say ignorant, but naive to the challenges that they have. And that allows me to dig in deeper. That allows me to do things a lot more intensely and work with this individual to accelerate the results. Because if you just come in completely naive, the professional is also going to be like, oh, I don't know how much this person knows or is open to change or willing to look at things differently. But if you come in well-versed in your space, in your area, then they're going to be able to help you that much more. So the whole point of this conversation is really this, is you will see that more people will need help going forward, because we are seeing mental health on the rise. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a firm believer, not just from a mental health perspective, but I believe that every person should have a coach, a mentor, and if required, a professional, a licensed professional that can help them through certain things, because it's only going to help you get better and only going to help you perform at a higher level. Again, the caveat is that these professionals, these people by your side that you are going to, are really, really good at what they do. You don't want average. You definitely don't want mediocre, because if you get those individuals, they can do more damage and harm than actually help people. So that's the whole point here. And summing it up, it really comes down to, this whole podcast is about the science of winning. And the science of winning really comes down to the science of growth. And the growth comes from self-awareness and self-development. And a lot of times, yes, we can do that ourselves. But if you really want to accelerate your path, go out there and get help from certain people, the best of the best in their class, and watch your growth trajectory just skyrocket. I've seen people, many people, really take off in their life and in their business or their career, their relationships, when they've gotten the right help. So that's my last tip for you. And I hope you, at some point in your journey, are able to find the right people to help you advance your life, your skills, and ultimately win.